Hey, I'm Pusher, and this is another Music Minute Breakdown where we talk about how music works. And today we're deconstructing P.Y.T, or Pretty Young Thing, by Michael Jackson. It's P.Y.T, so if you haven't heard it, you need to get on that. And if you haven't heard the Thriller album, you need to get your life together and go listen to that now. So P.Y.T is by Michael Jackson. It's on Thriller, the highest selling album of all time. It sold 66 million copies, that makes it 33 times double platinum. And P.Y.T is one of my favorite songs, if not the #1 spot. The album came out in 1984 and had a production budget of what today would be $2 million US. Quincy Jones produced it, had a feature from Paul McCartney, and they employed many great writers of the day. It won 8 Grammy Awards in 1984, and it was one of the first albums to ever successfully make use of music videos for promotion. Thriller is included in the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry of culturally significant recordings, and rightly so. This album was significant in breaking down racial barriers between black music and white music in America. A few years before Thriller came out in 1980, Rolling Stone refused to run a cover story on Michael Jackson, to which he responded, "I've been told over and over that black people on the cover of magazines doesn't sell copies. Just wait. Someday these magazines will be begging me for an interview. Maybe I'll give them one, maybe I won't." MTV was also refusing to play Michael Jackson videos, until Walter Yetnikoff, the president of CBS Records at the time, told MTV, "I'm not going to give you any more videos, and I'm going to go public and fucking tell them about the fact that you don't want to play music by a black guy." Threatening to pull all of CBS's roster from MTV, other than being the morally right thing to do, obviously worked. The 14-minute video for Thriller was in such high demand on MTV that they had to play it twice an hour. It's difficult to not see parallels to media that succeeded today, despite long-held prejudices. Okay, all that said, let's dive into the global information. The song is at 127.4 BPM. It may be an unusual number, but it seems like they weren't using a click. The tempo fluctuates to be a little bit faster or a little bit slower, but it's pretty consistently 127.4, which honestly is impressive. It's in B minor, the relative of D major. It's in 4/4 time. It runs 3 minutes and 59 seconds. And it's 126 bars long. Sort of like 117, but then there's 9 bars where it repeats and fades. Here's a list of all the instruments included in the song. There are a few noticeable differences between modern pop production and P.Y.T. P.Y.T is much more melodic. There are 8 different lead sounds being used as counter melodies to the vocals. Where did you come from, baby? Some follow patterns, some of them are opportunistic and happen only once or twice as needed. But in the songs we've looked at so far, the most leads we've seen is 3, so this is much more than we've seen in recent pop music. The vocals include Michael Jackson singing or talking. There's a background vocal line. There's also early use of a vocoder. Notably, there are many fewer sound effects than you would get in contemporary pop music. Pop music of 2018 uses lots of swells, risers, impacts, noise, samples, resamples, vocal chops, and so on to pad out production, add randomness, add weirdness, or add timbral interest to the song. P.Y.T is very light on that stuff though. The only sound effects really are the obvious vocal sounds that Michael Jackson's doing in the breakdown. Instead of sound effects, all the changes and subtle details are done with instruments and arrangement. There are a few different chord sounds. Notice I've broken the guitar into 3 different sounds. There's the funky lead, there's the distorted lead in the bridge and breakdown, and then the clean funky guitar is also used for some chords. There are 3 bass sounds. There's the main synth bow sound, there's an electric bass that layers under the distorted guitar, and there's a funky slap bass that happens just in the bridge. That sort of solos and has some interplay with the funky guitar. Now the drums in this song are obviously a standard kit being played by an actual person who's a drummer. And then there's also a bongo player. So there's a lot less random one-off sounds in the percussion. Now let's talk about the form of the song. P.Y.T is similar to modern pop form in that it can be broken into 3 major acts. Act 1 contains an intro, a verse, pre-chorus, and a chorus. Act 2 repeats the verse, pre-chorus, and chorus with some variation. Act 3 has a breakdown and bridge for contrast, and then repeats the chorus 2.5 times for the outro. Now the intro, verse, and pre-choruses are pretty standard 8-bar sections. The chorus, however, is a little more interesting. The first chorus is 16 bars long. Now musical sections tend to be 2, 4, 8, 16, or 32 bars long. Nice, even, symmetrical powers of 2. So this first chorus is actually a little deceiving because it's 16 bars long, but it actually breaks down into groups of 7, 7, and 2 bars. The 7s are further broken down into a 4 and a 3. and this little group of 3 is actually used at the end of the bridge to lead back into the chorus later. Very tasteful writing. Now the second chorus is only 14 bars long, or 7 plus 7, without the 2-bar turnaround at the end. And the choruses in Act 3 that end the song are all 7 bars long. Now the breakdown is 9 bars long, and the bridge is 10 bars long. So there's a lot of use of irregular section lengths in P.Y.T. Now I haven't experimented too much with irregular section lengths in my own writing yet, but it does seem to add a lot of character to the song and make it feel less restrained and formulaic. If you were to take any song and lop off 1 bar from an 8-bar section to make it 7 bars long, it would feel very stilted and unnatural. But Quincy Jones has used the arrangement of this song to make these sections feel natural. It seems like mostly a matter of using the arrangement to create strong downbeats in places where you would normally have weaker downbeats. In the past, I've also analyzed the forms of many Beatles songs, and with those songs it was actually the norm to have irregular section lengths. In modern pop music though, this seems to have been largely lost, which I'm sure some people see as a trend to follow, but a more ambitious producer could see this as an opportunity to stand out musically. Now let's talk about the chords. First off, every section of this song starts on a different chord, which creates a natural harmonic contrast between the sections. In some of the recent pop music that we've analyzed so far, the sections are mostly broken up by the arrangement, except for Strangers by Sigrid, which does use a few different chord progressions to break up sections. But in this song it leans a lot more on the writing than the arrangement to create these contrasts. So verses start on the tonic B minor. And there's an interesting contrast here where this synth piano is playing a B minor chord for 3 bars and an A chord for 1 bar. But the bass is outlining a completely different harmony. And the connection between these two elements is basically just that they're in the same key.
Where did you come from, baby? And ooh, won't you take me there right away? Won't you, baby?
So the chords are acting as more of a tonic pedal point, and the bass are outlining their own harmony, but it sort of revolves around a B minor center. Pre-choruses are based on the submediant G. The G in the bass steps down to an F sharp, which is the dominant to B minor, and the chords above it outline a C minor 7 and an F7, or a 2-5, that then leads us to B. But when the bass lands on a B, the chords above it are outlining an F minor 7 and a B7, turning the tonic into a secondary dominant that would lead to E. We then start the chord progression over, G major 7, implied 2-5 over F sharp. Then we have this A minor 7 over D, B7 altered, which leads us to the E minor at the start of the chorus.
Is the perfect time. We can make it right. Is the city lights in the night. Is the love and pain. Let me take it to the max. I want you.
The A minor 7 over D feels kind of alien because it borrows a C natural from outside of the key. And then the B7 altered is obviously leading us to the E minor because that's a 5-1 relationship, B7 to E minor. Now what's interesting about this D to B to E chord progression is that it kind of has a feel of a 2-5-1, or like a cycle of dominance leading to E minor as a secondary tonic. But the A minor 7 over D leading to B doesn't move by 5th, it moves by 3rd. So what it seems like is that we're actually hearing the semitone voice leading of the notes in the chords combined with a chromatic motion from D to D sharp to E.
Let me take it to the max. I want you.
Now the chorus again starts on a new chord, E minor. This chord progression is mostly based on stepwise motion. So you have E minor 7, D over F sharp, G, and then A. So the bass is stepping E, F sharp, G, A. This lasts for 2 bars and then we repeat that. Normally for a chord progression like this, it would make sense for it to move up to a B, which is the dominant that would then lead us back to the start of the chord progression on E. But it sort of delays that for this little 3-bar section, where instead it steps down through G and D over F sharp, and then the bass moves to a B, while the chords continue to play an F sharp minor 7, moving to a B7, which is the dominant that we've been waiting for, that then leads us back to the E minor to start off another 7-bar section of the chorus.
Love you. Pretty young thing. You need some loving. To the love and care. And I'll take it there. Girl. I want you.
In the first chorus and the first chorus only, we also have a 2-bar tag at the end, which is designed to take us back to the B minor at the start of the verse. And what we've done for that is simply a G over A, and then an A, which then moved to the B minor.
Yes, I will.
This is a pretty strong chord progression. Flat 6 major, flat 7 major, leading to 1 minor. And we see it absolutely all the time in pop music right now. Now the breakdown is based on an A chord and a B minor chord, and they're made more interesting by a bunch of chromatic approach tones that lead up to them. bridge, we have a similar thing, but just with the B minor and the chromatic approach tones to it. So there's a lot of variation in the harmony of this song, and it makes it really interesting and engaging on a lot of listens. This harmony is a lot more interesting than what we would see in most modern pop music. Of the stuff we've analyzed so far, you get a little taste of Leaving the Key from the Bruno Mars Finesse remix, but the chord progressions aren't even close to as dense. And instead of having a different chord progression in every section, it just repeats the same 3 chords for the entire song with a tiny variation in the bridge. Now let's talk about the melody. So here's a sign of a strong melody. When every section starts on a different note and also uses a different range of notes for the section. So the verse starts on an F sharp, and the notes are contained between the tonic and dominant B and F sharp, only occasionally stepping down as low as A, the subtonic.
Where did you come from, baby? And ooh, won't you take me there right away? Won't you, baby? Tenderoni, you got to be. Spot my need, just sugar fly with me. Don't you know now?
The pre-chorus works within a smaller, higher range between D, the mediant, and F sharp, the dominant. Only one stepping down as low as the tonic B, and in the last 2 bars even climbing as high as the tonic an octave higher.
Is the perfect time. We can make it right if the city lights when the night is the love and pain. Let me take it to the max. I want you.
The chorus only goes as low as D, the mediant, but it regularly reaches up to the high B tonic, with one ad-lib even reaching as high as the E, a fourth above that.
Love you. Pretty young thing. You need some loving. To the love and care. And I'll take it there. Girl. I want to love you. Pretty young thing. You need some loving. To the love and care. And I'll take it there.
It's easy to see how having every section's melody contain a different range of notes and also get progressively higher would not only create contrast, but also increase intensity in the song. An interesting contrast would actually be Bruno Mars' Finesse remix, where in the chorus the melody actually drops down about an octave, for the down chorus that we talked about in that video. So the norm would be as it gets bigger you go higher, but of course there are no rules, and doing something different and unconventional often leads to more interesting results. And now for my big takeaways, the things I learned from analyzing this song. Most notable I think are the irregular section lengths. The chorus sections of 7 bars, with the 2-bar turnaround at the end of the first chorus, the little group of 3 stolen from the end of the chorus to use at the end of the bridge, the 9-bar breakdown, the 10-bar bridge. This is interesting and definitely unconventional by today's standards. This shows that a strong arrangement can overpower the meter to do irregular things that don't feel unnatural or stilted. And this music can still not only be commercially successful, but historically, socially, and culturally significant. But only if you have musicians or producers or writers who are willing to go there. It's interesting that a single guitar is used for both the funk melodies and chords. Probably because it was all played by a single guitarist with a single guitar setup. This is fundamentally different from the way that electronic music is created from a bunch of random pieces of music inside a computer, instead of in real time off the floor of a recording studio. In electronic music, though, you can still mirror this technique. Think, for example, of all of the songs where the vocal is cut up or reversed or pitched higher or lower, and simply uses an effect to fill up space or create melodies, or create contrast or timbral interest, while actually making the song more cohesive. When I personally am arranging a song, if I need some little sound to fill in some space, if I've already got a big arrangement going, the first place I'll usually reach is for sounds that are already happening in the song, that I can change slightly to use in a new way. And this is a way to have a new sound happening but still tie the song together and make the whole thing more coherent overall. Of course, in this song as well, there are sounds that are opportunistic and only happen once or twice. So they're both perfectly viable options. It's just a matter of knowing what you want and how to achieve it. The more interesting chord progressions are huge. Whether it's pedal points, or more fluid use of slash chords, or secondary dominants or 2/5s, the use of different starting chords for each section. P.Y.T is rich with techniques for making songs more interesting within a pop context. There are lots of tricks going on here that are not necessarily easy to pull off with class. These tricks that make the music more engaging and fluid and fun seem to be somewhat lost in today's pop landscape. This could be part of a broad musical trend of optimizing music to only use the tricks that will work easily 100% of the time. Because if something works, often there's no incentive to try to make things more difficult for yourself. But if we remove these tricks that are difficult to figure out or pull off, because they don't always work, then we're losing something of the variety of our music. and cost ourselves the benefits of when these techniques do work well, like in P.Y.T, and that can sometimes enable a bit of a lowest common denominator approach to producing. Anyway, it's just something to think about. And that's your Music Minute Breakdown of P.Y.T by Michael Jackson. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, share it with your parents who might have had this on vinyl when they were in high school. If you want to help support the creation of these videos, you can go to Patreon and sign up to send a small amount of money every time I release a Music Minute Breakdown video. You can help spread the word by sharing this with anyone who might enjoy it, or learn something from it, or fall asleep better listening to a nerdy voice explain something technical in great detail. If you have questions or comments, or you think I missed something, or you have suggestions for the next song that I should break down, or the next topic that I should cover, leave those in the comments and I'll check those out. I should probably mention that you can go listen to my music on Spotify. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I'm even still on Facebook. But until next time, I'm Pusher, and thanks for watching.